How important is it for me to not get bit by a tick that could have Lyme disease and then I could get Lyme disease versus using DEET once in a while? Hello and welcome back to the Wellbeing. My name is Madison,
My name is Rachel.
and today we are talking about bug spray and like the pros and cons of different types of bug spray and getting rid of
Yes.
bugs like in your.
Yes. Which is very helpful because I feel like you see everywhere, or maybe we do, we're probably very targeted by toxic, non-toxic things on social media slash if you come into our neighborhoods, like all of your things that are popping up will be like, this is toxic, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like you see this a lot, like with bug spray. And honestly, going into the summer, it was something that I wanted to look into because I wasn't sure about it. Like my thoughts were jumbled about like how do I tackle this summer?
Totally. And I think the most common thing that we refer to when we think about should we or should we not be using is DEET. DEET. I have literally no idea what that stands for. Oh, it's really long, so I'm not going to say it. But it does stand for something.
We all have heard of DEET for
We've
sure.
all have heard of DEET, yeah, and I think maybe you know this, maybe you don't. You can get it in different percentages. So, like, I was telling Rachel before we hopped on here that I went to Nepal one time and got a 100% DEET situation, and then last year when I was camping, I also used a 100% DEET concentration because it was like the bugs were really, really, really bad. Um, and so there's pros and cons between using a bug spray, which they say at unless there's like levels of significant exposure. So you're like putting on DEET all day, every day, 365 days a year, that it shouldn't be so bad. But again, we know about bioaccumulation, we know about detoxing, we know like that's probably maybe not the best idea. That there's also pros and cons between weighing how important is it for me to not get bit by a tick that could have Lyme disease and then I could get Lyme disease versus using DEET once in a while because
Right.
there's a
Or
big difference there.
because like in Nepal, I'm sure, or if certain places of the world, if you go,
Mm-hmm.
like you could get yellow fever, from things
Dengue,
like
yeah.
that, right? Yeah.
Dengue, like all the things that you're like, oh, I do not want that.
I would rather wear DEET than have that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely do your pros and cons list. That is situational.
Yes. That is a good call. For sure. So some like I know there's obviously we've heard like some of the toxic effects of bug spray. It can range from like mild skin and respiratory irritation to severe neurological and cardiac symptoms. All of this depends on chemical composition and level of exposure. Again, that is like the key point to this.
Yeah.
Both of us, Maddie and I, went to school, grad school in Wisconsin, um, at UW-Madison, which I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but
Go
basically that's how we
Badgers.
met. Go Badgers, go Ivory Room, where we used to bartend. And there was this place in Madison, if you're familiar, and it's called the Terrace, and you can go there. It's right by the water, and there's like basically where you go to hang out with friends, play games, drink beer, whatever. And when you go to places like that in Wisconsin in the summer, there are going to be mosquitoes and you get bitten severely.
The whole
Like,
time.
yeah, like eaten alive, basically. We have both since moved other places, mountainous places. I live in Colorado now, and there are where we live and like in our backyard, and it's just a way different climate. And there's not mosquitoes eating us alive, rarely.
That's
Um,
fair.
so this has been a topic of less concern for us, but we still bring it when we go like camping occasionally. It's just like not something that we need in our back pocket as much as like I used to living in Wisconsin. So
Totally. Totally. I think that I have neighbors with some standing water somewhere. I need to figure out who it is
mm,
and like go poison their water in the middle of the night. Not poison it, but like figure that out in the middle of the night. Because last year we had a really, really, really wet spring. And that was like harboring mosquitoes.
mm,
It was
yeah.
gross. Like we had such a buggy summer last year. Uh, so I think it's just like differentiating between um, again, how important things are. And part of this is going to be, and we can get into this later, but getting rid of bugs like in your neighborhood, in your yard. I want to put up more bat boxes in my yard. We have one, but I think we need more. Um, versus using a spray, like treat the root cause versus
Yeah,
using like a spray or whatever.
right.
Um, DEET, the interesting thing that we just found out about this is that it can be detrimental to use on plastics. So if you have it like on your hands and then you have trekking poles with like the plasticky foamy top part, like it can wear down because of the DEET, or like your sunglasses or things like that. So that's also something to be aware of, and anything that can break down plastic kind of freaks me out. Even if like
Yeah.
I'm still going to use it again when I go in certain places.
Yes. And also always wash your hands after putting bug spray
Yes.
on because you do not want that on your hands. Because if you're like me, like I'm always touching something and my hair and my face and like my eyes and stuff. So definitely wash that. Um, yeah. So I know, so research says inhalation of high concentrations of DEET or other potent insecticides can lead to severe toxicity, though such cases are actually uncommon and typically linked to misuse or overuse.
I think that you would have to be like spraying it in your face for a long period of time for that to happen. Because it
Yes.
doesn't break down exactly what that means. But they did do one in rats for 14 days where like they covered their bodies for 4 hours a day or something in DEET and the rats were fine.
Okay.
So it's really, yeah, we're exposed to whole body for 4 hours and we're observed for 14 days. Okay, so maybe not every day. But they ended up being like kind of fine.
Yeah.
No deaths at lower concentrations either. Um,
It
yeah.
sounds like a lot of the issues that people have, like a lot of the toxic effects, a lot of the neurological changes, a lot of things like that are from improper use or high exposure. So maybe like,
Yeah. So just be careful with it.
and read the back of the bug spray when you are going to use it, because it'll give you instructions on how it's been tested and how to use it properly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, one thing that Maddie and I were like talking about is limiting use of when you use certain ones. So there's ones that contain DEET as the main ingredient that is effective at preventing bug bites and exposure to things like that come from bug bites, right? Not just like the itching and scratching of bug bites, but like things that they carry that could potentially affect you, like Lyme's disease and other fun things like that. So you can choose a repellent with picaridin and or DEET, and then there's also a product with oil of lemon eucalyptus. Um, so you found an article, Mad, on the difference between like DEET and picaridin.
Yes, I did. So DEET and picaridin, and this is an article from REI, but I really trust REI with my life, frankly. But they're the most effective repellents, and people often ask which is better. So here are the main differences. So DEET is considered the gold standard in terms of effectiveness. So again, if I'm gonna go camping and I know it's gonna be it was a gross spring and I like know there's going to be ticks and flies and bugs and whatever, I'm bringing DEET. That just is what it is. Um, it's been used and handled more than any other repellent in human history. This is exactly what it says, though it must be handled carefully because, again, it can damage plastics, trekking poles, sunglasses, etc., which is where I got that example. And then there's picaridin, which it's been around for fewer decades, but it's still been around for a while. But its efficacy is considered comparable to DEET for mosquitoes and ticks. It works better on flies than DEET does, which is very interesting. And then it has minimal odor and no damaging effect on plastics or other synthetics. So, in that way, it could definitely be better. I think that there are some that are probably combos that you could use, which might be an even better option for you. Um, but there are I mean, I think there's just like pros and cons to both. And then you can have the natural ones. So, for example, Kinfield has one that I've used that I like, and then Badger has one that I've used that I've liked. But I use that like when I'm in the backyard gardening, or
Yeah.
I'm going for a walk, let's say, at the river, and I know it's going to be a buggy day, but it's not like I'm going through super high grasses. So I think it's just being aware of your surroundings and
Hmm.
picking better options when you can.
Definitely. And there are like the natural bug repellent options, which, like Maddie said, are great for certain time and places. And those include things like castor cedar, citronella, clove, lemongrass, peppermint, rosemary, soybean oils, and things like that, which again have their time and place. If you're using it a lot of the time and you're just sitting in your backyard, or you have options to multiple different options that you can like have with you. Like if you go camping, maybe you try using the natural ones first. But if they're not working, then you can start using one of the other two that we mentioned, just because you do want to prevent bug bites in general, especially in like high risk areas. So use sparingly, try the natural ones, but also have the other ones on hand because those are they do
Yeah,
completely prevent bug bites.
not
Um,
completely, but
Not
mostly
completely,
more
but
than other things.
they're more effective than the natural ones.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. There's
Um,
also insect repellent clothing. Do you know this?
um, no.
So places like REI and other outdoor stores will have this, but it's basically clothing that has a synthetic chemical in it that can act like a natural extract to kill insects that it comes in contact with. And you can buy clothing that's pre-treated with this. I don't know that you can wash it.
Hmm.
Oh no, you can't. Oh, you need to wash it separate from other clothes,
Okay.
but you can wash it. I think you could probably reapply it. You can DIY to make insect repellent clothing and like use the chemical, or you can also spray it on like your tent or your pack or your hammock or whatever. But you can also just buy pre-treated insect repellent clothing, which I know a lot of people around here who like fish a lot or go on like long pack trips and stuff like that. They will wear this like the whole time, which I think is really smart.
Yeah. Yep. I think one other thing that is helpful too, like if you're camping or like if you have a stroller or something like that, you can just put like mosquito netting over it as well. Like
Totally.
as a good option because you cannot put bug spray on infants slash babies
Yeah,
up to a
no,
certain age. Yeah. So
definitely
that's
not.
a good option as well.
Another thing to know about camping that I learned probably, I don't know, a couple years ago when we moved here is that you can, people are like, don't leave the tent open. You actually will not attract mosquitoes so long as there's not anyone in the tent while the tent is open. Fun
Hmm,
fact. So I
that
mean,
makes
like, don't
sense.
leave your tent open. Spiders can get in there, whatever. But if you're like, oh my God, it's gonna get like all the mosquitoes, if you have like lights off in there and you are not physically present in there, you're physically present like next to the fire or somewhere else, um, less bugs will go in there because they are attracted to the carbon dioxide that we are breathing out
Mm,
more than anything else. So, like maybe one will get in there just like on accident, but it won't be a big deal until they're there.
cool. That's good to
Fun
know.
fact. Mm-hmm.
Also, if there's a chance of a spider getting in my tent, we are shutting that immediately, personally.
100%. I refuse to even sleep on the ground anymore. I'm like such a bougie camper. Yeah, we went camping once. I slept on the ground and I was like, Dean, literally never again. And then we bought like a pop top camper on top from
That
GoFest, and it's the
that is
best
the move
thing literally
because
ever.
otherwise you just commit to
Mattress,
like not sleeping very well. You're like, I'm just not
correct.
going to sleep very well
And like
tonight.
I still don't sleep like super great, but like I definitely sleep better than I ever did on the ground.
Hmm.
So 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Other things you can do if you're just like around in your backyard that work, but like probably not as well as DEET, but they do work, is making sure if you have any standing water, like to get rid of it. We gardened a bunch this last weekend, and there was some like standing water in um a tarp that's like smothering some gardening bed situation. So we're trying
Mm,
to get nothing to grow in there, which stuff
yeah.
still grew in there, which seems crazy, but whatever. So we were doing that, and there's like just like piles of water in certain places. That is almost guaranteed to grow mosquitoes. Um, Citronella candles can be helpful. Burning coffee grounds, like kind of around you, can be helpful. Installing fans or putting a fan near you will just like blow them away, basically. Um, owls and owl boxes can be helpful, as well as bats and bat boxes. And then you can also use a high concentrated garlic spray, which sounds disgusting, but it does work. So what you do is every 2 weeks or I think it's like 2 days in a row of not raining, you spray it, and then every 2 to 4 weeks after that throughout the summer or something like that. I did it last year. I do think it helped, but the problem
Hmm.
is like the neighbors, obviously.
Smelled garlic.
No, it goes away after 12 hours,
Oh.
but the insects can still smell it.
Oh.
But if it really rains, then it'll get rid of it and have to do it again.
What was the problem with the neighbors?
They didn't use it on theirs.
Oh, gotcha.
So like they still have
Got
mosquitoes
it.
in their yard, but it's supposed to do like everything within a mile, but I don't think it works that well.
That would be a lot. I'd be really
That would be
impressed.
crazy.
Yeah,
I would be really impressed too. I don't think it works that well, but it does work generally.
cool. Okay. So basically, moral of the story is you're gonna have to buy bug spray probably
Probably.
with some level of a toxic ingredient in it in order to keep bugs from biting you and creating worse issues. And what they recommend is if you're going to do one with the picaridin, which is probably like what the route that I'm going to go, it says to get one with a 10 to 20% concentration. DEET is at a 7 to 30% concentration. And again, choose one based on like where you're going to be and try and go the lesser percentages as far as depending like where you're at and how much coverage you're going to need. But those are the two recommendations for that. And remembering that no repellent is 100% effective and that you should always cover up when possible.
Totally. Last thing I just thought of is I didn't interview, but I held a summit last year where we
Yeah.
interviewed a person about Lyme disease.
Okay.
And Lyme disease, fun fact, you guys, not so fun fact, has been found in all 50 states
That's
and
wild.
in almost every single insect. So like
What?
spiders, mosquito, like tons of different, not just mosquitoes. So not just ticks, I mean. So like it's in some mosquitoes and some, so do be careful. And then the last thing about that is that the woman who she's an MD, she only treats Lyme disease pretty much.
Wow,
And
that's
she
wild.
said that you can, it is crazy. Also drink something called cistus tea, Cistus. You have to drink it throughout the summer. You can't just drink it once. And it's like a couple cups a day. Like it's a lot of tea, but it can help prevent that. So people don't really love to do it in the summer. It's like tea in the summer. I mean, I like tea anyway, but tea in the summer sounds especially awful.
Maybe you
Um,
could make it iced though,
Maybe
Maddie.
I could make it iced, yeah. But I think the moral there was that in the winter you can still get bites from ticks and stuff if you go like winter
Hmm.
hiking.
Yeah.
Which I know is like a common misconception that like you can't in the winter. You can, even if it snows where you live. But drinking cistus tea in the winter could also be a good idea.
Hmm. Interesting.
Mhm.
Have you tasted it?
No, I've never tried it,
Okay. I'm just curious what
but I
it tastes
would.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
would.
feel like you can put, well, excluding Maddie, if you like tea, you could
You
probably
like
put a
tea.
little bit of honey in any tea and it would probably be,
That's true.
or at least decent. That's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And also, yeah, very much worth preventing Lyme disease because that is not fun.
Yeah, no, definitely not. You do
Yeah.
not want Lyme disease. You do not want Lyme disease.
Yeah. No, you do
No,
not.
definitely not.
Awesome. Okay. What is your
Cool.
favorite thing from today, Maddie?
That DEET is not as bad as I thought it was for me.
Yeah. I guess I didn't realize that you could buy like different percentages where in
Mm,
when used like sparingly, then it's like you should be
mm-hmm.
using it.
Totally.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yay.
just not as bad as I thought. Cool. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Bye. See you next week. Same time, same
Bye.
place.